Jaylen Brown discussed his time and with the Celtics and future in Boston in an interview with The Ringer. This was wide-ranging. I
Very
again,
wide-ranging.
these are exact quotes. We're going to show you
All right,
some of
good.
them, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to go through some of it. What's interesting is near the end of the article is the one that I think has gotten the most amount of publicity, and that's talking about his future in Boston. And at this point, Jaylen Brown said this: "I don't know. How long are you remaining? You're talking about remaining in Boston long term. Okay, I don't know. What do you interpret I don't know as to mean? He doesn't know. Okay? He's literally telling you, I'm not sure if I'm staying. As long as I'm needed, it's not up to me. It actually is up to you, but that's fine.
Read the quote. Read the
We'll
quote.
see.
Yeah, man.
Read the quote. I can't figure out what he's saying and what you're saying.
We'll see how they feel about me over time, and I feel about them over time. Hopefully, whatever it is, it makes sense. But I will stay where I'm wanted. I will stay where I'm needed and treated correct. Okay?
It almost feels like directed at somebody.
Okay, so there's a lot of other stuff in there about how he feels about the organization. We'll get into that, but that's pretty unambiguous at this point. He's saying he's not sure if he's wanted, and he's currently saying, I don't know. I'm currently don't feel I'm necessarily being treated correct. Why else say, if I'm treated correct, I'll consider staying. If you were satisfied with the treatment now, you wouldn't say anything like that. There's really nothing to interpret here, even though people are bending themselves into pretzels to say, I don't think he meant. That's
who
not.
Who wouldn't want to be
treated
correctly? Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to be treated correctly?
Right. There's no reason to say that unless there's an issue. There's no reason to say you don't know if you're coming back. Unless you actually don't know. You're not worried about being stuck here or pigeonholed or turned into a Kyrie Irving situation. He can always say, I love it here. It's great. We'll see what the future holds. Obviously, there's no guarantees in life. We'll address the contract situation when it comes down to it. But right now, there's no place I'd rather be. Non-committal pleases everyone. That's an easy answer. He didn't give that answer. He said, I don't know. Because I don't know if I don't know if they want me. I don't know if I'm going to be treated well.
It's better
here.
you got that answer than the Kyrie, though.
Yeah, no, but it's fine. What I'm saying is,
which is what?
I don't know how you listen to this and feel. I don't know how you listen to this and feel good about the future with Brown. There's a lot of people that are like, why would he leave? Well, that's why. He's telling you why. And it's possible now. I think a lot of people have had it locked in their minds forever that he's staying. Like, why would he leave? He's absolutely going to stay. It's awesome here. Tatum and Brown. Like, you guys think it's awesome. I don't know if Jaylen thinks it's awesome here.
Does he like JB for 3?
No, I mean, I get it. Fans think it's awesome and can't fathom why he would leave.
Right.
But he's literally telling you why he would leave. Between this and the New York Times article saying that he's, the city of Boston hasn't been welcoming to him at all and has not improved nearly as much as he'd thought.
Yeah, you guys missed that convo too.
Yeah. So, I mean, you combine these two, he's basically stacking a lot of different things that aren't ideal for him here, which don't guarantee a return. Doesn't mean he's not returning, but at this point, you have to absolutely say this is a situation that has to be kind of watched closely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And Jimmy, Bobby and I talked a ton, so I'll let you and Josue kind of take your shots at this. And anyone who wants to check it out, Bobby and I talked about it earlier in the day.
I specifically didn't watch that episode because I didn't want to already know what your takes were going in. But
so what stuck with you most?
Well, arms folded, Jimmy. Here you go. He's focused.
Arms folded. No, I mean, just based on what you just said, John, I'm kind of where you are, and I actually have been there already. I have always been a little bit hesitant to just assume that Jaylen Brown, everything's honky-dory, and he's going to resign, and him and Tatum will just go off into the distance together and retire their numbers on the same day. I never got that impression. Now, where my concern kind of, my eyebrows raised a little bit is how often do players go on these sort of, it's not a media tour, it's a couple outlets, but it's kind of rare, right? Throughout in the middle of the season. I know the interview didn't just happen, but I know.
I don't think that's what happened, Jimmy. I said that earlier. This interview's from January, the latest one.
I don't care.
And the other one was last week.
January or last week.
Late January. And then
Yeah,
last
but he's
week,
not.
My
But
point
John,
is,
he's
Bobby,
not looking for whoever's willing to listen and saying this stuff. You had two
Sure
outlets
he is.
specifically going to him
Two
with these
outlets
questions.
But Bobby,
specifically.
why is my question?
Why?
It's just not common.
His
This is a guy who
contract's up in
doesn't
a year.
do the.
No.
So?
I mean, it's a
people clearly.
question.
Is it about the contract right now, or is it about winning a championship and playing good basketball?
Both of the interviews are about nothing.
Right.
They're about, let's just talk to
It's-
Jaylen
Yeah,
about
but that's the thing. People are
Every-
going to seek him. People are going to
activism,
seek him
his
out.
life.
Though. I mean, that's
It's
They're two tell-all
right,
interviews.
just out of the clouds in the middle of the
Out
season.
of nowhere. How many has he done before this?
Right. So
He's mentioned stuff. I mean, he's talked about sacrifice at the All-Star game.
How many tell-all
that's another thing,
interviews
Bobby.
has
Oh,
he
good.
done?
Bobby brought up another thing you can wonder. That my concern is that whenever Jaylen Brown talks, it's never really anything positive, right? He's talking about sacrificing. When have you ever When has that ever been a sacrifice for something that you've really wanted to do? By definition, a sacrifice. I mean, typically it's you're giving up something for the greater good, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean that's something else. So you want to talk about role? Okay, well if he's talking about sacrifice, then okay, so he's not thrilled with his role, right? He's sort of doing what's best for the team.
He averages the 7th most field goal attempts in the freaking
right, but this
NBA.
is what his thinking is. So sacrifice. John already mentioned it. He doesn't seem to be too fond of the city of Boston in general, right? For whatever reasons, for a number of reasons, and they might be fair reasons, but he's come out and said that he's had some issues. He's called out the fans, and I know not all fans, but some fans as being toxic. So now the non-toxic fans have to now defend themselves and explain that they're not the toxic ones everywhere they go. He's kind of in a way said that he's not a huge fan of ownership, right?
Yeah, he mentioned Wick and Steve, yeah.
Specifically mentioned them by name.
The house buying in Boston. Wick and Steve, not on the same page. We haven't even begun.
No. I mean, we haven't even gotten into. I mean,
it's all negative, right?
Layup opportunity.
It's all
layup opportunity
negative.
to compliment Jason Tatum and pretty much said the exact bare minimum of it's almost sounds just like a working relationship sort of thing. I mean, all these quotes are out there.
Air.
That was the last thing, that last part of the quote he said. But prior to that, Bobby, it was essentially
same as it's ever been. We were laughing with Sherrod. I asked Sherrod,
right.
What do you think of John?
Right. Same as
Sherrod,
it's ever been.
Same as it's ever been.
Same as ever been. He's a guy I work with. I know he works.
We've been here for a while.
That New York Times interview kind of went a little bit I thought it went, generally speaking, under the radar last week. I didn't think it got spoken a lot.
What, the Tatum Brown part?
No, just the interview.
No,
the New York
the
Times
interview.
didn't get a lot of publicity, I don't think, compared to the one that came out today. The one that came out today, some of that stuff was similar vibe, right? But what we also found out today, which I thought was interesting, and what we talked about on the show as it was happening over the summer, was the Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, practice session that was going on in the middle of the Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant rumors, and we went on this show and said. What, John, you got something on this?
No, let's just show the quote here, okay? And then we'll talk about that.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet.
I'm just going down the line on all the things that bothered me today.
No, because this is another one. Talking about how he felt during the Durant trade rumors. KD and JT are friends. They're working out together and whatnot, so I wasn't sure what the energy was. I love the energy word. It does a lot of work, The vibes and the energy. I wasn't sure what the direction of the organization was, and again, you don't have to read much between the lines. Like, I didn't know if Tatum actually preferred KD here over me. It wasn't clear to me. Nobody's talking to me. I have no idea. So what does he do? He calls Brad and Tatum together. Not Tatum straight up and be like, yo, man, let's have an uncomfortable conversation.
That's what stood out to me.
He calls these guys on a group chat and they talk about
FaceTime,
it.
Man.
Once we all get together, I kind of talked it through. We all left on the same page, but the actions that was taking place during that time, it just didn't seem like that was the direction that the organization was going in. I don't know. It was hard to tell, at least. Yeah. So again, he's leaving this situation unconvinced really of what the organization is telling him because he didn't know. He's kind of gone through this deal with them before, and he's got the team's best player, buddy with Kevin Durant.
While all the rumors are swirling, we're seeing pictures.
Not
of those
only
guys.
Publicly. Like we called him out for two things, Jimmy. One, the pictures. Two,
The
Tatum's
pictures were
interview.
so ridiculous.
The pictures taken by a
ridiculous.
Celtics photographer. Is that accurate, Bobby?
By a Celtics photographer put out on a Celtics Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know if it went on Twitter, but
I don't think it went on Twitter. Either.
On top of that, and again, this isn't all on JB. You guys don't enough. Because you guys got to get out of your heads with like it's nothing. He's literally telling you it's something. He's telling you I'm bothered. It's not anti-J. It's not anti-Brown. He's telling you I don't like it. I don't like stuff. Listen when he's telling you, and he's telling you I didn't really love that from Tatum, and I'm not loving what I'm getting from ownership and management with being jerked around, not being the guy. Constantly being in trade rumors. I don't love it. Okay, he's literally telling you. So listen, if you want to be critical of the Celtics organization and Tatum for what they did, you can. But don't pretend he's not actually saying these words. This is not an interpretation. It's his actual words. He is telling you how he feels. So listen to the man, okay? The Tatum thing bothered him. And it wasn't just that. Tatum afterwards comes out, gives a horrible interview where he doesn't do anything to dispel any of this stuff. None of it. He just said, well, I can't really control and whatever happens.
I work out with people.
Wrong. Again, wrong on Tatum's part.
Totally. Bad leadership. Bad leadership.
You have an obligation to make Brown feel better and wanted. And you guys called it out at the time. The workout was bad. The interview was bad. Bobby was clamoring for Brad to go out literally and hold a press conference to say, we love Jaylen Brown.
They had to, and look at it now.
We thought it was a little ridiculous, but you're right. That's serious damage done.
We all agreed that it was bad optics, right? We all said that. What's Jaylen Brown thinking, seeing this? And sure enough, he was thinking the same thing. What the hell is going on? What I can't figure out is how him and Tatum aren't even close enough where they can have that conversation.
Because they're not, man. They're not close.
Right, exactly, Josue. They literally had to get a mediator involved in Brad Stevens
or a witness.
Be the middleman on a three-way.
That's what that is.
I literally don't understand comments like this, guys. The house is on, like, there's flames shooting out of the house. Like, it's nothing. It'll be fine. Like, he's telling you.
It's really bad.
He's got problems.
So, and again,
it's
look,
really not
and
great.
I appreciate the
Go ahead, Josue.
I appreciate the transparency. I really do, because I think that's what both of these articles are about. This is what I've been going through. This is what I've gone through. In case you guys forget, it hasn't.
He
been
went
great.
back to the Hayward thing. Josue.
Exactly. Like, he lost his starting. Okay, even from the very, very, very beginning, people can say what they want about what it really was about, and I'm one of those guys too. When he was booed on draft night, it was more about the situation. Well, exactly. It was more about the situation than it was about Jaylen. But Jaylen didn't take it that way, right? And I thought it was really telling when he talked about how he was trying to prove to the league, essentially, in those first couple of years, that look, I'm a third overall pick. I'm as good as Ingram, as guys in my draft class, Brandon Ingram, I can outshine these guys, and up to the point where he is now, where he's saying, look, I'm one of the best players in the NBA. He believes that, and that's great. But look, it wasn't easy for him to get to this point. He lost a starting job. The star point guard who came in, and Kyrie Irving, couldn't stand him. Like, all this stuff is added up, and I like that he's talking about this, because it gives everyone a window into what he's been going through. And look, when he says he doesn't know what's going to happen, I don't blame him. Like, look how much things have happened throughout the past 3-4 years that he's seen up close and personal. And whether it was the way Kyrie left in this situation, or the Ime situation, I thought that part. I mean, look, maybe he doesn't agree with how the Celtics handle things with the Ime, with how Ime was suspended, and
like he doesn't.
That's something we talked about as well. And look, does he trust an organization, a Celtics organization, after everything he's seen? No, he doesn't. But none of this stuff is news to me. Honestly, I'm not surprised. Yeah. I'm just saying, I just look at this, him being transparent and letting everybody know, like, look, this is what I've been going through. It wasn't easy getting to this point, and shit, who knows what the next year is going to be. It's going to tell, because just last summer, after making the NBA Finals, I saw my teammate, potentially teaming up with one of the greatest scorers of all time and Kevin Durant. And what was that gonna happen? You know, what's that gonna mean for me? You know, and look, I understand where Jaylen's coming from, and I understand the fact that he's not as trustworthy with the organization because of that. But also, Celtics fans got to relax a little bit here and say, look, let's just see what happens, you know, in terms of where he's at mentally and staying in Boston. But none of this stuff really
I
surprised me.
am relaxed, all right, buddy. I am relaxed.
Here's
all right?
another one.
Like, none of this stuff really
Here's
surprised
another
me.
one. Here's another
It might
one on
not
the
surprise you,
organization.
Josue, but
It's hard coming into teams and organizations and being warm. They operate on different principles, I think. This is an organization. They look at it as a business where they'll tell you one thing and then behind closed doors, they'll say another. And they'll trade you off, tell you we love you, and they'll be like, we're going to trade him next
AKA
week.
Isaiah
I
Thomas.
think that's just how the business is run. Look, I know he's talking about the NBA business in general, but he's literally he says this is an organization, okay? They look at it as a business. He is talking about the Celtics organization that has jerked him around and offered him up in trades at least 3 or 4 times for players that they deemed better than him, whether it was Butler, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant on multiple occasions now. He's come up in legit trade talks of literally the entire plan of signing Kyrie Irving. He sits here for a year with Kyrie, loses his starting spot to Hayward, who he was better than at the time, okay? And then has to basically sit there knowing that the entire strategy is to build the future around Tatum, Kyrie, and Anthony Davis in a package that includes Jaylen Brown and a whole bunch of other shit. That's the entire year that, like, I'm being fattened for slaughter. I'm being literally
this was an NBA retweet. This is the Athletic writing that they offered him for Durant. And if that wasn't true, you can't come out and disavow it.
Right. But you know what else too, Bobby? You know what else too? This isn't going to stop. It's not going to stop. Let's be honest. Like, the next star, whether it's, you know, I don't know who, whatever. Last year it was Kevin Durant. Let's say it's someone else next year. Who's the first name that's going to be mentioned? Jaylen. It's never going to be.
Well, we're not trading Tatum.
It never happened.
Especially now that you might have to explore it.
And that's exactly it. If you talk about Jaylen not being sure about signing here, that's a factor that's not talked about.
That's going to happen every season.
I could sign, and all that means is you're going to trade me. You're going to dangle me the next time a guy you think is slightly better than me is available.
Well, he can ask for a no trade clause.
Sure, but I mean, and again, so you're just going to ship me somewhere I don't want to go. So why am I committing to you? Every year I come up in trade rumors. At what point does that stop? So again, I'm not blaming him for feeling this way. I'm literally just saying to people,
this is what it means.
He's telling you that I'm not sure because I don't love the way I've been treated here. Like, he's telling
he's got a list
I don't
of
like
reasons why.
He's got a huge list of reasons from draft night to losing his spot to being offered in trades multiple times to the head coach being fired and him not really being kind of in on the decision or whatever was happening and being hung out to dry and being clueless to Tatum playing around with KD and not doing anything.
Right after they went to the finals.
To the sacrifice he's given.
You know, as he believes he's a top player on this team or in the NBA. I think. I don't know if it was a misquote or if whatever, but I'm pretty sure at the end of the Ringer article today, he said he was the leader of this team, and he said the leader. I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to, dissect every single word, but literally guys, the quote's right there. As long as I'm needed. We'll see how they feel about me over time, and I feel about them over time. Hopefully, whatever it is, it makes sense, but I will stay where I'm wanted. I will stay where I'm needed and treated correct. That is a direct, that is, you might as well type it out, mail it to Wyc Grousbeck's office, and sign it in blood, because that's a message to ownership saying, hey, I'm not happy with the way I've been treated. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm wanted or needed. And if I continue to feel this way, I won't be back.
That's a good question, Bobby. But again, the last thing I want to say, and let's address that too, because what kind of change? What could they do different?
I don't know, John. Maybe getting the ball at the end.
I'm not defending Jaylen Brown I'm just saying that's how he feels right now. Whether or not you think he's right or wrong.
That's the point. Jimmy, I think that's the main point. I think people are bucking against this, thinking discussing this is somehow either misinterpreting Jaylen Brown, which we're not. We're literally begging you to listen to the man. And two, to say no one is blaming Jaylen for feeling this way. You just have to now acknowledge there's a problem potentially with your second star who's not necessarily locked in here long term, and that's a serious problem. You have to figure out how to appease him and make it right and make him feel needed and wanted and respected, and and all of the things that are important to him, or figure out what you're going to do if you don't think you can repair it at this point. And you're talking about that long laundry list there. So, like, again, Bobby asked a question. I'll throw it back at you guys. What do you do if you're the Celtics organization right now? You read this and you're like, geez, wow.
I think they were already
okay.
Worried.
I think they were worried anyway, but like now you're like, okay, he's putting it out there, and okay, what do we do here? You meet internally, and then what?
Win. That's really it, guys. I mean, win. If they win a championship, all this goes away, right? It motivates him. It's an incentive to come back. And, if they don't win, though, like, that's the thing. That's when things get really interesting, right?
You're right, because
you have to climb that mountain all the way over again. I mean, for a third time. Look, these deep playoff runs, not only are they, not only does it take a lot of talent and a lot of energy, but, it's exhausting. At the end of it, and you have to come back and you have to regroup and you have to wonder, you have to talk through a contract year and try to block out all the noise and everything's going to be, talking heads saying, can these two do this again, pull this off? I mean, that's really it, guys. It's winning. That's what keeps him around. That's what changes things. And getting him involved at the end of the games. I mean, you could say that as well, but I mean, that's a part that's really up to Joe Mazzulla. But, I just think that plays a part in this whole narrative.
I'm glad you bring up the winning Josue, because that is the
Tatum. I just feel like, real quick, also Bobby, I just feel like Tatum, like that's always gonna be the structure. It's never going to be like a similar, 1-2 punch similar to what we saw between LeBron James and D Wade, right? Like, it's always going to be clear cut. This is Tatum's team. He's the best guy. He's going to get the ball at the end of the games, and Jalen's got to be comfortable with that. And I think that's a big part of it.
That's what he's talking about with sacrifice, John. He's not talking about shot attempts. It's the image, it's the status.
Right. Get used.
But here's what I don't
get comfortable with the fact that he's always going to be number 2. He's never going to be a top guy.
But this is what I don't get. In a year or two is around the time that players like Brown try to find a best buddy somewhere in the players like Brown who go and they find a team where they can be the alpha. Then they play there and they're stuck in the wilderness and they're an 8 seed and they get knocked out every single year, but he's getting a lot of buckets and making the All-Star game. And what does that guy do? He demands a trade to go play somewhere with one of his buddies and have a super team. Like, you already friggin' have it. Like, recognize that that's what you're going to seek in a couple of years. Do you have to be 1 and the other guy 1A? Like, Kawhi and Paul George, like, does Kawhi have to be 1? And, like, did he make Paul George get a 1A tattoo in order to play with him?
That's his team.
I mean, but it's silly because all of them are like, who can I pair up with? Kyrie and KD and blah, blah, blah. That everyone's racing to do this. You already have it. You're literally the best duo in the NBA. Like, you're going to leave and then eventually seek it out again. So it makes no sense to me to want to not be that guy to someone unless you don't want to be it to that particular someone. Do you want to go play with a guy you're boys with, and the two of you will do it together because you know that there's mutual?
He hasn't made this decision yet. He's still feeling it out.
What's the secret sauce? Because nobody goes anywhere and says, I want to be the only good player on this team.
This is why I'm glad Josue brings up the winning, because, again, everything in here is negative. Everything here paints a bad picture. But there's still 2 things that point in a positive direction for this working out, and that's this being a great situation winning-wise, as long as they don't slide here and lose early, as Josue said, and the $300 million. And it's still, I went off about this earlier, Jimmy, that the Supermax thing pisses me off because the Celtics should have the right to pay him what they want to and keep him around with a major salary advantage. And this stupid voting system is going to screw them over unnecessarily.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of this as well, the Supermax,
yeah. Because, again, if they give him $300 million, he's signing it, isn't he?
Again, that's the assumption.
It'd
Because
be
again,
stunning
I
if he
think,
didn't.
as we said, his agents are telling their players, sign it. If you don't like it, make them trade you. But take that money because you can't get it anywhere else. So yes, if he gets, the conversation completely changes. I don't think there's any world in which he doesn't accept a super max offer, because you're talking about $80-90 million difference over whatever else can be offered. That's monstrous. So
that's how where you're at, though, right?
It could be as easy as that. But if he doesn't get it, you're entering the offseason really confused about what you do if you're the Celtics. Can you make it right and convince him here? Because I don't understand, like, is Jaylen saying feel respect if they need or want me? Meaning, like, does he think there'll be shenanigans and not offer him the max? Like, I don't understand this in NBA.
Well, that's interesting. Jimmy, you mentioned that earlier. Do you think they'd hesitate to offer him $300 million?
Probably not, because I think they don't want to lose the asset, right?
Yeah.
And he's kind of...
There's no chance.
Yeah. He's going to
get
get
had this
it.
window,
no reason
the championship window. Why wouldn't you? I mean,
well, what do you mean, John? He's not only going to get it from the Celtics. So
what I'm saying is, no, his next contract, wherever it goes, is determined. So that's what I mean. Is like there's no reason. This isn't a leverage game. This is what I don't understand for Jaylen Brown. You know, if you don't want to commit, you don't want to say anything because you don't know how it's going to go. Like, it can't be a leverage thing. This is just him trying to be honest and put some stuff out there about how he's feeling. And so, again, I'll urge people to listen. But there's no backside. There's no downside to it. Like, he could have said, I love the Celtics organization. This is when I want to be for the rest of my life. And it doesn't matter. He's not hurting his negotiating power. He's getting the max here. Right. The super max if he gets all NBA, or he's getting the max somewhere else. His next contract is assured. So it's not there's no money play. It's really just a choice. If it's as easy as, like, oh yeah, I want to feel respected, does that mean, like, as long as they offer me the max,
well,
I'm
it's
good?
Interesting, John, because
then it's fine. Then it's
like
not
Jimmy
an issue.
brought up earlier, if he gets traded, he loses the supermax outright.
Right.
So it's the opposite. If you're making a statement like this that could get you traded, you might not care as much about the supermax.
Here's the thing.
Because if you remember Lillard and Beal, oh, I love Washington. Oh, Portland. I love Portland. Because they were getting the supermax.
Mm-hmm.
And if they got traded, they weren't getting it.
Legit, what does this mean?
Yeah, it makes no. So for those listening and not watching, he says, John, JB has been committed. The team hasn't been committed to him. Do you not get that? Yeah, I mean, and this is kind of where I'm at with it.
They've given him.
I got to say something here in the last 10 minutes. Can I get a word in?
I think the trade rumor thing.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Okay, so I don't even know where to start because I've been keeping track of everything you guys said. But just on this comment alone, I guess I'm not really sure how the team hasn't been committed to him. At least, I mean, on the court, obviously, I think the only thing they could do differently, and this is a Missoula thing again, is to me drop a couple more plays for him late in the game. I don't know, but that can't be what it's about. And I know Jaylen Brown has a laundry list of concerns and issues with apparently everything going on in his basketball world and on the court and off the court. But I'm just not really sure. I mean, somebody asked the question, what else can the Celtics do? Yes, Josue, you make a good point, win. And if it was that easy, I'm sure they would. But other than that, I'm really not sure they can do anything. It almost feels like Jaylen Brown has already these, pretty deep beliefs and thoughts about what this organization is, what this city is, what his teammates kind of are at this point. I don't really know what else they can do for him. And the guy's, making a good chunk of money and he's set to make a lot more. Now, my question is, what do you do if he doesn't get an All-NBA? If you're the Celtics, what do you do if he doesn't get the All-NBA, first, second, or third team this year? Which would mean you are now on the equal playing field of the others when it comes to money. Is that correct?
You're below the others because you can offer 165 in an extension, and they can offer 180 when he gets to free agency.
That's what I mean.
You can't offer him an extension.
Well, no, I mean, what I mean is he's obviously going to go to free agency at that point.
Yeah.
So you have a decision to make before next season, because what I'm getting at is this: everything I'm hearing, in these interviews that come out, and just everything that I've kind of seen over time, it doesn't seem like on a completely level playing field. I haven't seen or really read anything that makes me believe Jaylen Brown would choose Boston over a different situation. So if you're the Celtics, you obviously know more than I do. You're involved much more. You have to make a tough decision. Do you risk playing out his final year of his contract, his free agency year, and risk losing him in free agency? Or do you consider your other options, which would be for a trade? Now, the other problem with that is you're trading him to a team that also wouldn't guarantee that he's staying there. So you're trading him away for much less than what he's worth at that point, because the team's going to take on that risk.
I told John earlier, I keep him. I don't think there's enough out there that you can go get that.
I'm sure John loved that idea.
That makes it worth it.
No, I get what he's saying,
but
I lean in the other direction, but I get it.
My inference, just inferring, based on.
You're seeing the same stuff I'm seeing, right?
Depending on how this year ends, I think they'll explore it.
I think they're going to look hard.
It really depends on how this year ends.
If they
win
lose
the
early,
title,
John.
if they win the title, obviously he stays, and they try to make everything work.
I don't think that's obvious either.
I shouldn't say obvious.
I think it heals a lot of wounds, John.
You think he might still want out if they win?
I think there's a lot of damage done.
Me too.
But don't you think winning could heal some of that?
Short of the Supermax, he might. I actually think winning a championship makes it easier to leave, because it's like, I got it. Now I want to go carve out my path. And so I think, again, people are just inferring a lot and like really assuming a lot about Jaylen's mindset. He's telling you how he feels. He's literally saying, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this organization. I don't know how they feel about me. I'm uncertain. Yeah. He may want to carve his own path regardless. Yeah. So again, to the comments of everybody defending what Jaylen is saying, we're agreeing, guys. We say he has a right to feel this way. Just acknowledge that it creates a tremendous amount of uncertainty around his future here.
He has
That's
a right to
all
feel
we're saying.
He has a right to feel some of the things that he feels. I wouldn't necessarily say that everything he's saying makes sense to me.
It doesn't all, but the point is he's feeling it.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Right. It's real.
The point is he's actually feeling it. So stop trying to read into stuff. He's telling you how he's feeling, and he doesn't like it. Whether you agree with whether he has a right to like it or not is irrelevant. He doesn't like a bunch of things right now that are affecting whether or not he's going to return. That's the story. Right. Not if he has a right to feel it, not whose fault it is. Nobody's pinning it on one person or another. I think the Celtics messed up a bunch of things. I think Tatum in that situation, like you keep saying, Jimmy, really didn't help himself out at all. I think Jaylen's had a chip on his shoulder the whole time, and these grievances keep stacking.
He holds grudges for sure. I mean, that's obvious, right?
There's a lot there, but there's the city, and there's a bunch of other things that he just might not want to be here. People just have to start to come to grips with it, and then figure out, what do you do? So what do you do, Jimmy? Do you hold or do you trade? If he doesn't get the Supermax and you go into next year and you're the Celtics organization and you're really like, I don't know, man, what do you do?
I honestly, gun to head, and I'm not advocating for this, but I would, if it was me, I think the smart thing would be to trade. But only if you know, and I don't have enough information. Like, I think Brad Stevens and Wick and those guys, I don't
know if they have that information, Jimmy.
They must have more information. They must have a better inclination. I don't know. And obviously, I do. But I would say this: if Brad Stevens,
I don't think they do, because I don't think he trusts them enough to have open conversations based on everything we're hearing.
They might just have a better impression, or they might get the vibe.
We said this
the
at the
vibe
time
I
too.
get, and I've said it. The vibe I get is, again, all things being equal, I think everything. Again, this is based on everything I'm reading and kind of what I've been seeing. It feels like he wants to sort of make his mark on another team as the alpha in another organization in another city, and do things that way. That's just based on, I'm not saying I'm right. That's just my interpretation of everything that I'm seeing and reading. I'm not saying go trade Jaylen Brown today. The thing that sucks the most, the guy is playing unbelievable basketball. He probably, at this rate, will make one of those teams, because that's how good he's playing. And that's what kind of sucks, because
It changes a lot if he does. It changes the whole conversation.
If we could just talk about, if these interviews don't exist, the show's already ended by now. We just talked about how well the Celtics played tonight, and Jaylen Brown's playing the best basketball of his career. But now these interviews are out there. You start to second guess why maybe they've been on a little bit of a skid. Even though Jaylen Brown's playing great, is there a disconnect in that locker room that we don't really know about, that we're starting to see trickle out a little bit at the top? I don't know. This is what happens when these types of articles come out. You start to try to interpret things, on top of what the obvious quotes are. So, Jaylen Brown is playing some of the best basketballs of his career. But I'll also say this. It's tough to root for guys that don't want to be a part of your organization or don't want to be part of your city. And I'm not saying that's Jaylen Brown, but I just rarely hear positive things in that direction. So at the end of the day, if it turns out that he doesn't want to be in Boston and he doesn't want to be on the Celtics, there's nothing else you can do. And life will go on, and the Celtics will have to make a trade, and they'll bring in other players. It's happened to every other team, I'm sure, across the league at certain points, and they go through that process. But I don't want to cheer for guys who don't. It's got to be reciprocal, and I don't know why Jaylen Brown doesn't feel it, because I'll tell you what, when I go to games or when I watch games, it's nothing but love that I see.
I think fans love him.
It's nothing but love. So I don't know. Again, it goes back to what else can they do? It's been nothing but love. So again, if it's not
Kevin Durant
reciprocal,
was available. I don't know.
yeah, but that
well, no, even then, remember the arguments we had? Some people were die hard, never trade Brown for Durant.
Of course.
John was die hard. I began that way.
Well, like you said, it's only a small toxic group.
Apology, Cam.
I began that way. This is one of the reasons why I flipped.